My name is Gary Parker, and I'd like to welcome you all here today on behalf of C&T Associates. This program is and presentation is brought to you in conjunction with the Royal Borough of Greenwich's UK Shared Prosperity Fund program to support non-profit making businesses in Greenwich, but we've invited other people as well. And this is a government-funded program that is due to end at the end of March 2026. There may be other programs to replace that in due course. We shall see, but we will let people know. C&T Associates is a fundraising, business support, and digital services company based in Southeast London. And we work with a whole range of partners, including Greenwich and Bexley local authorities, Peabody Trust, GLL, and many, many other organisations. And we specialise in business support and fundraising. We write bids and applications for a wide range of organisations, large and small. So this morning's presentation is about social impact. And I'm going to try, it's quite a big subject, this, so to get it into about an hour is always a challenge, but I'm going to try and unpack it for you, demystify some things and show you some of the measures. This is mainly focused around non-profit making organizations and businesses, but a lot of it is applicable to charities and mainstream businesses as well, as you will see. So I'm going to share this right now, and we'll begin. Okay, can everybody see that? Can you see that, Telly? Yeah, good. Okay.
Yeah.
Here we go. So the purpose of the workshop is to review and understand monitoring and evaluation of social impact of social enterprises and other social organizations and businesses. So this is a definition of social impact. There are a number of definitions, but I thought this was the most applicable from our research. And it's in the context of monitoring social impact. What is social impact? Social impact refers to the positive or negative effects that a social enterprise project has on the well-being of individuals, communities, and the broader society. So it's the wider impact on individuals and communities, basically. Encompasses the long-term changes or benefits that result from the project, such as improved quality of life, enhanced social inclusion, environmental sustainability, or economic empowerment. So a good example of this is if you were running an employment program. Obviously, the outcome of that is that people will get jobs. But the wider impact of that is that it would help to develop local communities, because there will be more money in the local community, and that would have an impact on the services and the development of that particular neighborhood, hopefully a positive one. In practice, for a social enterprise in England, social impact might include outcomes like reducing unemployment, which I've just mentioned, improving mental health through social activities, or reducing carbon emissions through sustainable practice. So, it obviously depends what your organization or project is doing, and this particular social impact of your project will depend on its focus. I think that's it in a nutshell. And there's not just one social impact. There could be a wider range of outcomes and impacts depending on what you do. So, monitoring social impact. What does that mean? Monitoring social impact involves systematically tracking and assessing the changes that occur as a result of a social enterprise project. So the process helps you understand whether the project is achieving its intended social goals and how effectively it is addressing the needs it sets out to meet. It's set out to meet. So you have got to develop systems and practices that will assess and track your the impact of your project, whatever it may be, basically. Um, how does this work? It might involve collecting data on participant outcomes. So going back to employment, so how many people got jobs, etc., further training. There could be a number of outcomes off that. And then uh, another particular measure is measuring community engagement levels over time. So if you've got a project, how does it work with the community? Are you recruiting local people? Is it benefiting them? Because I worked on some regeneration projects in the past, and while they all achieved their outcomes, they weren't necessarily benefiting local people, or some local people who benefited then left the area. These are these measuring social impact can be quite complex, and it's periodic and time bound as well. Obviously, if you've got a short-term program, that can be quite a challenge. So I'm going to show you some tools that you can use to do this. I should have said it earlier as well. At the end, I will take questions from you. There will be time to do that. So let's get on to the next slide. Outcomes. What is an outcome? An outcome are the specific changes or benefits that result from a social enterprise's activities. They represent the short and medium-term effects that the project has on its beneficiaries or target community. Outcomes are often linked to the goals of the project and are used to measure its success. So, like I mentioned before, if you've got an employment project, obviously one of the outcomes would be people getting employment, people getting training that can lead to employment, and a number of others. Here's another one. An outcome might be to increase literacy rates among children who participate in an education program, or improved mental health among adults who engage in community building activities. My experience is in well-being that it's more of a challenge than in some other, than around economic empowerment, for example, outcomes, because economic empowerment outcomes are probably easier to measure. Because if you're running a training program that gets people into jobs, obviously one of the key measures is getting those people into jobs. If you're running a well-being program, it depends on the level of support needed to your participant group. If they've got quite significant problems, it may be um, uh, managing their life on a day-to-day basis over a set period of time. Because for some people, getting out of bed or going to a training course or event is an outcome in itself, particularly if they suffer from anxiety or a number of related conditions. So, if you've got a wellbeing project, you really need to think about your outcomes and what they might be. Some will be straightforward, others less so. So, let's move on. This is an output because we're going to look at outcomes, which we just looked at, outputs, and then social impact. An output is a tangible product, services, or activities that are directly practiced by the social enterprise. So, what does that mean? If you're running an employment program, the training you give to your um, uh, beneficiaries is the outcomes. Sorry, is the output, and you can measure that. The outcome is that they will get jobs, and then the social impact off the back of that is an improvement in economic health and activity in that particular community. So uh, there are a number of ways you can look at this. Um, Another way of looking at it is for a social enterprise project in terms of outcomes, outputs. Outputs could include the number of workshops conducted, the number of participants trained, the amount of resources distributed, or the number of community events held. So, in summary, social impact is the broader long-term changes resulting from the project or program. Um, Monitoring social impact is the process of tracking and evaluating these changes. Um, Outcomes are the specific changes or benefits that occur due to the project, how you people get jobs, etc., etc. Um, and the outputs are the immediate tangible results produced by the project. So you train people and help them to get into work. Um, Understanding these terms helps in effectively designing, implementing, and evaluating the social enterprise project. Um, and if you're monitoring and measuring its social impact, it's essential for assessing its effectiveness, attracting investment, and guiding strategic decisions. So it can often mean as well, if you can um, monitor and evaluate your social impact, it will help you get other work or new contracts or extended contracts, however you run your projects and manage them. So, what I'm going to do now is show you 10 of the easiest and most common ways to monitor and measure the social impact of social enterprise or non-profit making organization in England. So, but that's in the context of what we've just mentioned. So, key performance indicators, sometimes called KPIs, these are one of the most common measures. What does a KPI measure? It measures specific metrics tied to the enterprise's goals, such as the number of beneficiaries served. So, how many people you might support for a project over a year or another time period, revenue generated, or environmental savings. So, if you're running an employment project, it would be the number of people you have on the program, because obviously without people on the program, you can't give them support or training and help them get into work. And then the number of people trained might be another key performance indicator. And another will be the number of people who got jobs. And then there is the wider social impact of the project as well. Because this is not the only way you're going to measure it, as you will see. Identify key performance indicators relevant to the enterprise's mission, track them regularly, and analyze trends over time. So, if you've got a year-long project, you should be reviewing it, I would say a minimum of about every month, to see if you're on track, to see if you're recruiting people, that they are getting whatever training and support, and of course, in the longer term, helping them to get back into jobs. Why it's effective, because it provides quantifiable data that can be easily monitored and reported to stakeholders. So your funders will usually want to know how the project is progressing. And some might want to agree key performance indicators as part of the process, but not every funder does that. So the funder processes are often quite different depending who they are. Whether they're grant-giving organisations, or if you've got a contract with a local authority or some other organisations, then the KPIs expected may be rather different. And it also depends on the funding and the size of the grant or contract you may have as well. Because generally speaking, uh, the bigger the project or grant or contract, then uh, the more monitoring that will be required. So let's move on. This is the second one. This is called social return on investment, or SROI. I'm trying to keep this as jargon free as possible, but you need to learn some of these terms. What does SROI measure? It measures the financial value of social benefits created relative to investment made. So, I've worked with some well-being projects. This is purely from a financial aspect. And one of the things that they did is they got information about how much a GP visit cost. I think it was this is a year or two ago. I think it was something like £35. And then they tracked the people on their program, and by the end of the program, a significant number were having less visits to the GP and other medical organizations. So they were able to show over time that their project had saved money for the NHS, which is quite a clever way of doing it. Um, um, how do you use SORI? You calculate it by assessing monetary values to social outcomes and comparing them to costs involved in achieving those outcomes. So they asked people, that project I mentioned, they asked them at the beginning, on average, how many visits to the doctor per month were they having? And they would track this on a quarterly basis to see if the project was having some impact. And in that case, it resulted into less visits to the doctors over periods of time. So the difference between the two in financial terms was the social value generated by the enterprise. Um, and that's one way to do that financially. Um, the next way is very common. Surveys and questionnaires. What do they measure? Stakeholder satisfaction, changes in behavior, and perceived social value. So many organizations do this, both to participants and to the wider community or other stakeholders involved in projects. Um, and as I say here, how to use distribute service to beneficiaries, employees, and community members before, during, and after project implementation. So you're using this to get feedback from stakeholders in your project as you go along. There are a lot of free tools around that you can use. Most of them give you up to about 10 questions, but if were at all possible, you need to avoid long surveys with large numbers of questions, because it's probably likely that most people won't answer all questions, or indeed be able to answer all questions. So the shorter, the better, really, although I appreciate that that is not always possible. Um, uh, why it's effective? Because it collects direct feedback and can be tailored to specific aspects of the enterprise's impact. Um, you can it depends obviously on how often you're able to uh, distribute these surveys. So you need to think about that before the project starts. And indeed, if you have a monitoring system or an outline monitoring system in place, and you've got room to put that into your funding application, then you should do so, because funders like that, because it shows you're thinking about the project and how it's going to work. Um, and will improve your chances of getting funding. Although, again, with some applications, that's not always possible. But where it is possible, then it may be a requirement of some funders as well. So another one is called uh, impact mapping. What it measures the pathway through which the enterprise activities lead to social outcomes. So you create an impact map that links activities, outputs, outcomes, and the overall impact. Regularly update it based on project developments, why it's affected. It provides a visual representation of how the enterprise's work leads to social change. So I think I've got an example here. Um, this was from uh, uh, an organization that used a lot of social media and apps. It was in creative industries. Um, and they were trying to diversify their income stream. So his was one of the goals. Whatever your goal is, that goes first. Grow mobile advertising by 50% over the next 12 months. So that's what they did. The actors or the people taking part in this or worked with were superfans with mobile devices, live concert organizers, and artist agents and promoters. So you've got a number of actors. Um, they're not all necessarily uh, working together. That you might have disparate actors in something like this. It really depends on the nature of your project. But if you've got a strategy that engages all of them as best you can, that will lead to more effect. The impact is that people will come back more frequently, stay longer on the app, and view more ads per connection. The deliverables were push updates on the app, specific offers every month, and better layout when browsing events. But again, it's the structure that's important there, really. So you've got your goal, then you've got your actors, then you've got your impacts, and then the deliverables. So you can put whatever you wish down as goals, and obviously the actors for all your projects, I suspect, may well be different. So that's quite an easy way of doing it, and shows your strategy all on one page. Here is another one. These are case studies. I mean, again, these are particularly um, popular with a range of areas. For example, well-being tends to use this a lot. The thing about this is obviously before you even start, you've got to get the permission of the person who you want to use as a case study. And if that permission is not forthcoming, you can't use it. And then even if you've got permission, you need to safeguard that person's data and identity. You could preferably just use their first name unless they agree to the use of your full name. But I would err on the side of caution in this. Always get people's permission. Um, Only use the first name and be careful how that information is distributed, or make sure it's in an on something you can track, like your website or whatever. Um, but just bear that in mind. What case studies measure are the detailed examples of how the enterprise or project has positively impacted on individuals or communities. So, for example, if a person came to you with particular issues and you gave them some help, which resulted in them being more active in the community, less socially isolated, or you gave them other help that might have helped them get training or into employment. then that is how the project has positively impacted on an individual or a community. And these are one of the most popular ways of doing this. Case studies are one of the ones that I would recommend for all of you because they're easier than some of the other ones that we've just mentioned. But all of these have their place in certain circumstances. Um, so, how do you use this? You select a few beneficiaries or communities and document their stories, focusing on the change experienced due to the enterprise's activities. So, what support have you been able to give them, and what was the result of that support to the individual? Hopefully, it was a very positive one, and then you should detail the positive impact of that and what it was. Why it's effective, because it demonstrates real life examples of impact, making the enterprise's work more relatable and tangible, because you're not just dealing with data or statistics, you're dealing with people here. And stories, people are always interested in people's stories because everybody is different. Everybody's life experience is different, and people can relate to these experiences and impact. Okay, let's move on. Focus groups and interviews. What does a focus group measure and interviews measure? In-depth insights into stakeholder experience and perceptions or impact. So you're usually working with a group of people here and asking them to comment or give their opinion on your project or key issues related to your project. And you can conduct interviews or focus groups with different stakeholders, including beneficiaries, employees, and partners. So you could get all of them in the same room. Maybe that's a good idea, but it's certainly a good idea to do them separately as well, because some beneficiaries, particularly if they're or if their employees, might be reticent if their employer is in the room for any reason, or partner organizations that they're dependent on. So again, you need to think that one out. And from this, you can gather qualitative data. Why it's effective, it provides rich, detailed information that can uncover deeper impacts not captured by the qualitative methods. Because going back to the employment project, if it's a KPI that people get into employment, but by having a focus group, you can dig deeper into that. Was it, there's this thing, we got it measuring on one of our programs at the moment. Have people got a good job? And a good job has a certain definition, which includes they're getting at least the London living wage, and it's a substantial number of hours or full time. There's a number of other definitions around that. That wouldn't necessarily be brought out in a KPI that just focused on the number of people who've got jobs. It's the quality of those jobs that would be focused on, or would be one of the focus aspects of a focus group. So obviously, you've got to prepare well in advance. There's lots of stuff online you can get to help you prepare focus groups. There are organizations that can help you with that. There's a lot of stuff you can download online. But if you're going to go down this road, you need to have it prepared well in advance and work out what information you're seeking to accrue from focus groups or interviews. And there's a picture of one at work there. The next is community feedback mechanisms. What do they measure? This is continuous feedback from the community on the enterprise's activities and impact. So, you can do this in very, very simple ways. Um, Establish channels like suggestion boxes, online forums, or regular community meetings to gather ongoing feedback. Another thing that is done a lot these days is setting up WhatsApp groups. You can get feedback from that from people, but again, you need to ensure that you're managing people's data properly and getting their permission. Um, that's another thing I should say as well. If you're managing people's data in any of the ways that I've just mentioned, you should be registered with the Information Commissioner under the Data Protection Act, which will cost you £40 a year. That's a legal requirement. Um, uh, and there's certain requirements about managing people's data. We are registered, Cynthia's registered with the Data Protection Act and the Information Commissioner, and there's a lot of information on their website about how to manage people's data. So I would recommend that. So another way to do this is through community meetings to gather ongoing feedback. Obviously, again, it depends what your project does, and there are some things that may be more amenable to community meetings of various types. But it may not be appropriate for all projects. That's why I'm giving you information about a range of alternatives here. Um, why is our community meetings and community feedback mechanisms effective? Because they ensure that the that your organization or enterprise remains responsive to community needs and can adopt its approach accordingly. I'll give you another example of this. I worked with a community cafe, and they were expanding their services and were introducing a new menu. So they convened quite a short meeting, and they previously distributed some information about the new services and the new menu, and they asked people what they thought of it. And some people gave their feedback at the meeting. Some people asked for other additional menu items. Other people wanted price reduced for various things. Um, and as a result of that meeting, they changed the menu. That's quite a simple thing. That example actually helped them to get funding because they made a lottery application and they used that feedback that they got as an example of community engagement, which of course it is. And if anybody who applies for the awards for all strand of the lottery will know that measuring community engagement is something that they expect. They expect numbers and they expect examples. And that can be quite hard for some organizations, but there is a very simple way of doing that I've just given you. And was used successfully by the organization in question. So let's move to the next one. This is called outcome harvesting. What this measures is unintended and intended outcomes that emerge from an enterprise's activities. I'll give you an example of this in a minute. Uh, but what you should try and do is to regularly review project activities to identify and document both the expected and unexpected outcomes. One very good example of this, because there's a lot of research being done on it, is around childcare. Community childcare is so effective. I'm a big advocate of it because obviously not only do children get supported And then parents can go to work or guardians can go to work as they need to, or whatever other responsibilities that they've got. But a lot of the research has shown that people who use community childcare facilities and services effectively become a social group, and that's quite important for many of them because it may be the only contact. If you're a lone parent, it might be the only contact you ever have with other people. And also you can learn about other things like what's going on in the community, about training, even about employment opportunities in many cases. So with your childcare project, obviously you've got um, outcomes around support for children and their development, and for parents and families going to work, etc. But you've also got these other benefits around the creation of social networks. And a lot of the research has shown that those social networks are vital to many communities. And when they're removed, it can have a negative impact on those communities as well. So, uh, outcome harvesting is a very interesting area, and why it's effective because it captures a broad range of impacts, including those that might not be immediately obvious, like those that I've just mentioned in terms of the creation of social networks with childcare. Let's move on to the next one. Uh, this is if you're new to this, this is probably not one for you. If you're an organization that's more established, then uh, this is something you should consider. It's called Balanced Scorecard. What it measures is a holistic view of the enterprise's performance across financial, customer, uh, internal process and learning perspectives. So it measures a whole range of things and performance within your organization. Um, how do you do it? You develop a scorecard. I mean, again, if you're new to this, go online and look for some examples of balanced scorecard. I'm not saying much here because I could have done the entire presentation on this, and it mainly only might only be applicable to a few of you. So probably better if you're interested in this to go online and have a look at it. Um, why it's effective, it provides a balanced approach to measuring performance, ensuring that social impact of your project is integrated with financial sustainability. So, in other words, that your financial architecture is resolute enough to deliver and continuously improve on the delivery of your project. Um, and then, if you're financially secure, you can expand your services. But these days, that is a challenge for a lot of organizations. But if you're developing and expanding organization, that's probably the one for you. If you're new, you should look, or still in earlier stages of development, you should look at some of the other ones that I've just mentioned. Um, Here is the last one, participatory evaluation. Uh, what it measures is impact as seen from the perspective of beneficiary and other stakeholders. So how you do this, that sounds perhaps a bit more complicated than it is. You involve stakeholders in the evaluation process by having them help design the evaluation, collect data, or analyze results. Indeed, some projects are now what they're called subject to co-production or co-produce, so they're developed with your stakeholders. And not only is the evaluation process uh, 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 supported in the design by your beneficiaries and other stakeholders, but the whole project outline and development is. Um, and then you collect data and analyze the results with them. Why it's effective? Because it empowers beneficiaries and ensures the evaluation reflects their experience and priorities. Um, because I think this is a very good way to do things because it opens your project up to more than one perspective because you may see it in a certain way. You may see the whole project. Others might have a different view or want to focus on certain key aspects of it. But you will get, if you do it the right way, you will get incorporate that into your evaluation process. These methods can be used, why it's effective because it empowers beneficiaries and ensures the evaluations reflects their experiences and priorities. So um, there's more engagement in it. And if you get people more engaged in your project than just a kind of transactional basis where people come along and if they're, wanting skills to get a job, that's it, and then they go. If you can develop a relationship with them, they could become champions for your project or help other people on the project who uh, through peer learning and other ways to do this might be struggling a bit more. So, everybody is kind of lifting each other up as part of this project. Of course, that's in a kind of ideal world, but I think this is another good way to do it. Um, and these methods can be used individually or in combination to provide a comprehensive picture of the social enterprises aspect. The choice of methods should align with the enterprise's goals, resources, and the nature of the activities. So, all projects are different. So you've got to get this um, into your, you've got to measure it in terms of uh, how both your organization and the project is developed and as part of the design of it. And if you can incorporate this into it, it's going to make it more it's going to make it more likely to succeed. Right. There you go for a technically rigorous, socially inclusive, and culturally respectful participatory evaluation. Sorry, that's a bit of a mouthful, but it does um, um, incorporate everything that I've just said. So, in summary, you should utilize the techniques described above, but pick the ones that are most appropriate and realistic in terms of application. I think another factor in this as well is one that was just on that last slide. Uh, you need to make it culturally sensitive as well. Some of these methods might be more culturally sensitive than others because we live in diverse communities. So you need to think about that. But that's one of the reasons why I'm giving you some tools here. So you can pick the ones that are most appropriate to your project and your client group or beneficiaries, whoever they are. Smaller organizations may not be in a position to implement all of these, but should use the more attainable ones like case studies, KPI analysis, or methodology that involves participants or volunteers. Because we were looking at ways to do this today, I haven't looked at the the impact of volunteers being involved in it. But these kind of techniques, they can really help volunteers if you've got them in that they might be able to learn some technical skills from this or get more involved in a project. Um, Larger organizations should be more ambitious and utilize a range of monitoring and evaluation strategies and maybe use different ones on different projects. You don't have to use the same one all the time, but every organization is different. So you've got a range of strategies and tools that you can implement, even on this one, which is which was limited to 10. I could have given a lot more, but I wanted to focus on the key ones because we've only got an hour to do it. Um, there's some resources for you. Um, there's a lot of stuff there. There's a lot of stuff online as well, but there's a few websites. As I said earlier, for anybody who joined late, um, we will be sending out a um, a copy of the presentation today, and this presentation will go online in due course. So I'm going to stop the share here, and I'm going to take any questions.
I've got one question.
Okay, Steph, and did you want to ask one as well, Telly?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, Steph first, and then Telly.
So just going back to the social return into investment
Yeah.
section, you said something like you have to put a value against the
Yes. Yeah.
investment. So I can understand how to do that in relation to kind of like, let's say, physical matters, i.e., I don't know, a notebook costs £2, um, your petrol, like it's all kind of worked out. But how do you put your a value on like mental health, physical kind of improvements in fitness? Like, how would you do things that are not tangible? How would you put a
That,
physical kind of amount on those things? Or is it
that,
just a
that
guesstimate?
that's a good question. As I think I mentioned in the example, one way to do it is look at the costs of a GP appointment. There's a lot of, the government is measuring this all the time. So there are quite a lot of statistics online about how much it costs to go to a GP. And then if people are, as a result of your project or over time on your project, they've got less GP visits, then that's a good way of measuring it because it's like, how do you put a value on human life? This, isn't it? That's very difficult. Not necessarily the road you want to um, uh, go down. So I think obviously you need to do some research about that, about costs. And values on that. See, it depends on the nature of. I'd have to know to answer in a lot of detail. I have to know a lot more about your project and what its KPIs and potential social impact is. But there are ways you can do it, but those are the most obvious ones. Um, and then, there's other things you can look at, like if people are employment, the number of days off sick they've had, things like that. I mean, there are values for things like that. But it kind of depends. I mean, it may be because it sounds like you've got some kind of well-being projects or something like that. You might want to use one of the others. The other measurement tools that I've given in this presentation, like case studies, for example, that will be quite effective in showing the impact on individuals, often more striking than, financial statistics.
Great, thank you.
Okay, Telly, what did you want to ask?
Yes, I wanted to know. Well, I'm setting up a CIC in well-being, and I wanted to know how can I measure or evaluate my deliveries.
What kind of
I
services are you
need
going
to
to
know
deliver?
if my delivery is going to be actually beneficial for my target community.
What
So what can I do to do that?
two questions here. Who are your target community, and what kind of services are you looking to deliver?
So my target community is people affected by chronic illnesses, especially kidney disease. And I was looking to do workshops uh, mostly workshops, therapies, one-to-one therapies and group therapies. So I wanted to focus on that for now.
Right. So, I mean, I think given you're focusing on a very specific group, what kind of help are you going to be giving them? It doesn't sound like it's medical help because I don't really want to comment on any medical issues because I'm not a doctor,
Not
but
medical, no, it's more of like giving like nutrition, coaching,
all right, yeah, yeah.
things like that. Mental
So
therapies.
we work with a number of organizations that do it. I mean, they're all quite different, really. Um, Obviously, one of the things that you can do for people is provide them with a range of tools and resources. Because one of the things that funders are always interested in, if you've got a 1 year project, you know, if like a lottery or 2 year project,
Mhm.
um, then what happens at the end of that project, you know, to the group that you've been working with, one of the things you can do there is provide them with uh, tools and resources about their condition so they can learn more. Um, um, and
The thing is, there is already organization, charities that provide that.
yeah,
So,
that's good. Well, you can probably use some of their materials then if you contact them. That's a kind of follow on, but um, you would you would have some basic key performance indicators. So you would look if you were, see, it depends on, you know, what you're trying to fund. I'll give you an example. The smallest strand of the lottery awards for all, you get £20,000 over 2 years. And you could probably, sorry, the phone's ringing. Um, and um, you could probably uh, work out the number of people you wanted to work with over that period. So that'd be one of your key performance indicators. And you should look to measure the improvements of people's conditions over the period of that support that you're giving them. I mean, an easy way to do that is by case studies. If you use a case study of individuals, but like I said earlier, you've got to get their permission, um, and that is a very good way of illustrating um, how you can how you've supported people, um, and then you can also look at how or try and measure. You might have to do this with another organization, the improvement of those individuals over a period of time. I'm not talking necessarily about medical improvement, but are they able to engage more in the community, for example? Um, are they able to work or do other activities? They may be part of your program. So there's a number of things that you can use as KPIs over that, but you need to get design a project first and then work out the KPIs as part of the project. And if you've got some key performance indicators and you've got some case studies and you've got an evaluation, I mean, other things you can use is you know some kind of basic feedback mechanism, you know, formal and informal feedback from people. You know,
yeah.
you started with us 3 months ago. How are you feeling about your condition now? You know, these are not complex measures, but you should look at the tools that I've given you today, the examples that I've given you, because there's 10 of them, um, and see which might be the most appropriate one to use for your project.
Okay.
Um, you know, as I say, a lot of them. surveys, feedback, even have a group session of because if you're doing workshops, you'd have the group together so you could get periodic feedback. If you're running one workshop a month, you could do feedback after the second month and then after a quarter on the program. Try and map people's progress as they go along, and then you can illustrate that with case studies and a
And
range
it's
of
very
other.
difficult to conduct surveys because a lot of them are, how do you call it, burdened by surveys between
Okay, well then that's not the one for
different
you. Try and
organizations.
maybe having a meeting with people,
Mm,
um, or a kind of informal focus group that might help. You know your client group better than I do,
mm,
so ask them. That's the other thing. Participatory evaluation. I mentioned that as well. Ask them. Um, what feedback process would they like? If they don't want to do surveys, that's good. If they tell you that, then you can use some other kind of mechanism as well. So then you've got a kind of participatory evaluation there. In fact, what I would do as well, if you map out whatever your project, whatever your workshops are, you should consult some of the people, because presumably you know people who've got this condition, about the content of the workshops and the feedback that they can give for it. Ask them what they think would be a good idea if they're willing to participate in it. The other thing you can do in many funding bids is you can put volunteer costs. So you might be able to pay the expenses of some people, for attending surveys and stuff like that, or participatory meetings. You should think about that as well. But, if you've got, because it sounds like you're working with and you've got some experience of, a very specific group of people, then get them involved in it, and that will enhance and enrich your project.
okay, that sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Um, we are just getting up to, I'm just going to take a quick photograph of the screen so I know everybody who's been here so far. Um, um, we've got now to about midday. So thank you all for joining us here today. If you look on our website, cntassociates.com, there is a lot more, and there's more to come in the new year. In fact, I'm just looking at my calendar here on the wall. On January the 15th, we've got a presentation on funding for wellbeing projects, which is part of this program. So I hope some of you will join us. It sounds like you've got one, Telly, so I hope you will join us on that. These are free. These are supported by the Royal Borough of Greenwich and the government through the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. If you've got any further feedback or information for us, please message us. And we do provide a range of services. Some of them are free, like this. Others are chargeable, but we can give you a quote for those. But whatever, I wish you all season's greetings and a very happy new year. And take care, everybody. I really appreciate you joining us today. Thank you.